Hi guys, this is Nikhil, the Geeky Nomad. Welcome to my channel. Today is going to be the first episode of the F1 Capsule, your weekly dose of everything Formula One. As you all know, that the 2021 Formula One season is about to start. We have something special lined up for you in today's video. We are going to talk about the teams, the drivers, and our predictions for the 2021 season. For that, we have two very special guests for the discussion today. We have Bharat Sharma, someone you have already seen on the channel. He is a senior sports journalist, and as I would call him, the only friend that Bernie Eccleston has in India. We also have Kunal Shah, who is the former head of marketing of the Force India Formula One team. He is currently the producer of ViaSport's official F1 broadcast, and you might have also heard him on the Inside Line F1 broadcast. If you haven't, I suggest you tune in right now and subscribe to his podcast. So, without further ado, let us start today's discussion. So, guys, thank you very much for joining in for today's F1 Capsule, the first episode, in fact. So, it's a pleasure to have both of you on the channel. Okay, so let's do one thing. Why don't we talk about the 2021 season? I believe this was supposed to be the year we had the new look cars, and we were excited that we will have something very new to Formula One, because I believe in the past few years, Formula One has become a little monotonous, if I would say, maybe a little repetitive. We've seen Lewis winning all the championships, hardly being challenged. I think 2018, Seb got close, but I think since then, I believe it's just been a one-way street. So what do you guys think? But this is the 2020 season 1.0. But what are your thoughts on this?
Hi, thanks for having me on the F1 Capsule. It's great to be talking Formula One with you both. And Bharat and I go back several years ago, so it's great. I need to thank you for reconnecting the two of us. I must say that, right?
Always a pleasure.
Yeah, but talking about 2021 Formula One season, I think it's probably not going to be as predictable as the previous seasons have been, right?
Yeah.
I know Formula One is fairly predictable these days, especially with Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton's dominance and so on, right? I still think the COVID-19 impact will be felt. Like, for starters, we don't have a confirmed calendar yet. Yes, there is a confirmed calendar, but till the race actually happens, we don't know if it'll happen. And there are several driver changes. Lots of teams, I think 7 out of 10 teams have got a new driver lineup. McLaren have Mercedes power, Renault's become Alpine, Ferrari are going to be Ferrari, but they have a new power unit coming up, which is crucial because their previous power unit was sort of outlawed, if I could use that word. And then Aston Martin is making a return to Formula One. Red Bull has Checo Perez, so we'll get to see his depth in a front winning car. So lots of different stories to look forward to. And I think the changes that have been put in place for 2021 might not be that visible for all of us because the cars will look the same, but there are lots of changes under the hood that could sort of impact form factor.
Yeah. Bharat, what do you think? Do you think it's going to be more of the same, or is going to be different? Because I believe Kunal touched on a very good point. That, there are a lot of changes.
Yes. So, I mean, I'll let Kunal be the expert here because actually he's the expert. I'll talk more about, as a journalist, what do you expect from a sport? So, in the last 10 years that we've been covering Formula One in India earlier, and then obviously there's no Indian GP. Like you said, there's monotony, and obviously earlier it was Red Bull, and now Mercedes are dominating. And I still see Mercedes dominating this year also, because obviously the big rule changes are expecting next year. But yes, as a journalist and as a viewer, I've reached a tipping point where I want to watch Formula One, but again, I'm not too sure whether I'll get edge of the seat action or not. So that's my concern. probably Red Bull will be a little more competitive and they'll push Mercedes in a race or two. But then by and large, I see status quo.
I believe that I think one very major point that all of us need to look out for is probably McLaren with their Mercedes engine. I think both Mercedes and McLaren have tasted success much earlier in the earlier part of 2020. Uh, but what do you think? Do we still see Lewis Hamilton as an eight-time world champion? I believe that that is quite a possibility.
I
How would
think
you?
I think it is going to be a Lewis Hamilton 8 times world champion, and to me these records don't really matter as much. Also because I don't hold them, I maybe put that disclaimer. But what I think people will be okay if Lewis becomes a 10 times world champion, so long as he is challenged to his titles, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's the challenge that sort of ends up being lacking. Like you pointed out, there was a Vettel challenge that sort of came up for a couple of seasons before it, faded away by itself. It's going to be status quo when it comes to the championship battle. It's going to be like a three-way fight, which will become a two-way fight, and then we'll have one winner.
Yeah, yeah. But can we blame Mercedes here because obviously Nico Rosberg decided to retire after 2016, or do we blame Bottas because he's apparently happy in being the number two driver. So in my view, George Russell should have been in that car instead of Bottas. But obviously they don't want to disturb the balance right now, which is understandable.
Yeah, I think so. It's fairly understandable. I mean, Mercedes will see what is the best way for them to get the results that they want, which is winning both the championships every single year. And they probably realize that if Hamilton is anyway the alpha male driver, then should they get a second alpha male, or can they get somebody who will do the supporting action while still sort of challenging and keeping Hamilton honest, right? Also, George Russell he's been very, very impressive, right? But I think it's more or less been the law of Formula One that you need to be in slow cars to prove yourself, which George has,
Yes.
before you sort of get a championship winning car under your belt. So I think this will be George's last year in Williams. Question is, will Mercedes pick him for Mercedes, or will they place him in a customer team or the likes, or a partner team? But I wouldn't blame Mercedes. I'm sure if you and I probably wore Toto Wolff's hat, we'll just be like, let's just bet on the best horse that we can. And right now, it's undeniably Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah. I think he's already got a 1 year extension of his contract. So, but I personally
Yeah.
believe that Bottas needs to step up the game if he wants to be in Formula One for more seasons, because I think he has had his opportunities. I think he's just been a little inconsistent with those opportunities, and also at times he's been very unlucky. I believe since this is the number two car, doesn't have all the updates from the get go, so that could also be one of the reasons. But let's just move on and quickly talk about Ferrari. Ferrari has been a dominant force in Formula One for decades now, but it all seems to be going down the drain for them because last year was probably the worst season ever in Formula One. Do you see them jumping back this year?
It's tough to actually take a guess on what Ferrari could end up doing, because they believe in these kind of spikes, like some really great seasons, and then like, oh, what happened? Hey, what happened with all those resources and the money you get from Formula One? I think Ferrari will have a better season than they did in 2020. I believe this will be because they will have a driver lineup that they wanted in 2020. In 2020 they had to contend with Sebastian Vettel and all the bad press that came with when they forgot to pit him, or each of the radio messages where Sebastian was explaining to Ferrari how they should sort of deal with their race strategy and so on, right? So I think they will have a better season. They're also bringing in a new power unit, which, like I said, a couple of minutes ago, will probably define what their season's going to be like. Because in 2020, their power unit was, I think 50, 60, or 65 bhp lesser than their rivals, and they were
Yeah.
losing a lot of time in the straights. So if they sort of make up that deficit, then I see them climbing up the order. But will they go for a championship challenge? I highly doubt that it's coming this season.
Yeah,
Also,
pretty much the same. I feel. I think. Yeah,
also
I'm looking
I
forward
believe that
to Carlos Sainz and the partnership. I mean, the two youngsters in the team. It should be really exciting. Carlos should be pushing Charles race after race.
I think Carlos has that sort of an advantage. I think because he has driven slower cars far more, and also has been part of development of McLaren to come to where they are this year. So
Yeah,
I think this should be a good battle between the teammates. I think this year is a battle of the teammates. Uh, Red Bull has a very dominant lineup, I would say. Checo has been, the go-to guy for Formula One, for in fact Force India, and now Racing Point, and probably he would have wanted to stay at Aston Martin, but I think he's where he wants to be today. I think he's in one of the top three teams, and so what do you think Red Bull chemistry is going to be like? Will Checo take the hat of elder brother and say, hey, I'm going to pick up this, and then I'll help Max be ready for the world championship? Or do you see they being at loggerheads for the entire season? What do you think that chemistry would be?
I think Checo Perez is going to be a revelation in 2021. For example, Pierre Gasly and Alexander Albon, when they were racing alongside Max Verstappen, they always had the pressure to
Yeah.
sort of prove their talent and perform alongside a Max Verstappen.
Mm-hmm.
Checo Perez comes with several years of experience in Formula One, several proven, or I would say repeatedly proving results time and again, one of the most consistent drivers. So he's not going to be wanting to step into Red Bull to sort of beat Max Verstappen. All he needs to do is even end up matching Max Verstappen, and that in itself can sort of create that mindset shift with which I think will help Checo. And he's a very cheeky racer. He's also a very solid driver when it comes to consistency, and that is one
yeah,
area where I think Max will get to learn from Checo, because you'll see
Yeah.
very few mistakes from a Checo Perez coming up. So the highlight is going to be a Perez versus a Max Verstappen. And of course, then how the whole Honda power unit will develop in 2021, because that's then the power unit that will be carried forward for the next few seasons after.
Yeah.
yeah. But will he get equal treatment? That is my concern, because uh, the- uh, even Ricciardo towards the end of his stint with Red Bull got insecure about that, then moved to Renault. So will he get equal treatment? And like you said, he's very solid, very consistent. So many podiums for Force India, Racing Point, now Aston Martin. So looks like it's probably one team which has a very intense driver lineup, and we can expect a lot of masala in this season.
Yes, we can. And that's the big question. Will he get equal treatment? Will he be the number two driver? And we could also see, Checo Perez playing the long game out here, because I remember during my times at Force India, he's also a very commercially inclined driver. And I say this in a positive sense. You have to think of yourself as a commodity or an asset that you can monetize in every way you can. At the
Yeah,
moment,
yeah,
he's got a single year contract. Could he play the rear gunner, help Red Bull achieve what they want to, which is for Max to be able to attack the Mercedes-Benz cars, and then get himself a contract extension before sort of unleashing himself on Max Verstappen. Again, I'm just building up a scenario, but I think Checo Perez will be a great watch in 2021.
Yeah. I think also the fact that he has a sane head on his shoulders. I think he's a mature driver. He has matured throughout those years, and I would say in his right, he has been a very successful Formula One driver. Also, with the fact that Honda will exit in 2021, both Red Bull and Alpha Tauri will have to, do you think they will continue this engine program. I think they're looking to other teams for freezing the development, but then I don't think what's in store for there.
So actually, just a couple of days ago, the engine freeze was announced, and
Yeah.
Red Bull has also confirmed that they will buy Honda's power unit IP, and this then is going to turn into Red Bull Racing engines, which is the first time they are sort of getting to do that. So Red Bull, I think, is a great brand to sort of get seek motivation from. They're all about only energy drinks, but the way they've gone about becoming a force in Formula One, building some of the most technologically advanced machinery, winning world championships, races, being politically powerful in the sport, and so on, right? So Red Bull building their engines is going to be an absolute delight. It also sort of confirms a couple of things, which is that the hybrid turbo era has sort of skewed competitiveness in favor of the manufacturer teams, because the sync you get between the chassis and the power unit is very, very crucial. And second, that Red Bull have long realized now in these 7 seasons that they can keep going to as many manufacturers to buy their power units, but if they genuinely want to attack for a world championship, which they need to, because they need to keep Max Verstappen, right? They need to try and build their own engines and sort of go down this route that they've sort of confirmed. And it helps that the power units freeze has sort of fallen in place.
It's actually quite surprising the FIA agreed to this. Very, very surprising.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would also say it's very sensible, because Red Bull brings so much to Formula One, right? And it's just the rules that are not permitting them to get a competitive engine. Like Red Bull's fallback option every year is Renault engines, right? And it's not the best in class power unit. So it's like saying, hey, I have all the money to throw at Mercedes and Ferrari if they give me a power unit, but they just won't sell that to me. And that was becoming, a stumbling block for Red Bull Racing. So it's in a way very good that Formula One has come to this agreement, and it also shows how the teams are willing to let go of personal choices or personal things that benefit them their own selves for the greater benefit of the sport. Because we're in the pandemic era, there are no new teams coming, and if Red Bull decides to say, hey, I'm leaving, suddenly you're going to have 4 cars less, right? So
Yeah.
for the greater good of the sport, I think it's great that the engine freeze has sort of come along.
Yeah. You touched upon Renault. Renault is now rebranding as Alpine. What do you see there? I believe, I think could be a turn in their fate. They look competitive last year, pretty competitive, in fact. I believe they will continue that streak this year, but I don't see them actually being as good, because I personally feel that McLaren with the Mercedes engine will be a better runner on them. Uh, your thoughts on Alpine?
They had a really strong season last year. They got double podiums with Daniel Ricciardo, and now they could show that progress to attract Fernando Alonso back to Formula One and Renault. All eyes are on Fernando, irrespective of which
Yeah.
series or which team he races on. So, the Alpine entry into Formula One is going to be very exciting to follow. It's also very close between the P3, P4, P5, P6 standings. So you're going to have Aston Martin good on some circuits. You're going to have McLaren, Mercedes good. You're going to have Ferrari sort of getting good. And you're going to also have Alpine out there. And on to McLaren, Mercedes, since you sort of just mentioned that, it may take them a few races to sort of settle down with the whole Mercedes unit and get their systems to be running as much in sync as they would like. But yes, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
I think we should also quickly touch upon the rest of the pack. I believe so. One thing that I've never been shy about is Williams has been and always has been one of my favorite teams. But recently they've just been disappointing. I think unfortunately last year we had to see Frank and Claire move out of the team. Do you think now good days to come for Williams?
It may not be in 2021, right? But it could well be that 2022 onwards, they will have a better shot. Let's remember the aero regulations, the sliding scale aero regulations, to be more precise, come into effect this year. So Williams can develop their car a little more than their competitors above. We already saw that between 2019 raw pace and 2020 raw pace, they had made a significant jump in performance. So the hope is that Williams is able to resurrect, form and sort of be in the midfield fight, if not at the sharper end of the field. And Williams is a great example, because at the start of the hybrid turbo era, they were fighting for top three positions, and they finished third, I think, couple of seasons, third and fourth, and then suddenly they dwindled away. So it just shows how much Formula One has developed as a sport. Where if you don't keep moving with the times, and if you don't keep up to date with your package, you will dwindle down, which also leads to the second big learning you get from Williams, that just having a Mercedes-Benz power unit doesn't mean that performances are going to be guaranteed. And we all have great memories of Williams. I'm sure Bharat has written several stories about the Williams family as well. But I think
Yeah.
it was the inevitable that they had to sell stake, and they had to sell the team rather, and sort of move on.
Yes. Yeah. But are they likely to keep the name? I doubt. It they might completely be erased off its grand and rich history.
I
Might be
think
released.
I think just like Ferrari, McLaren, Mercedes, Williams is a heritage name. I don't see that going on pretty quickly. Kunal, what do you say on that?
So the strange thing is, the team purchase was made under the understanding that the Williams name will remain as Williams, right? But these things can change
Yes.
so quickly that we'll not even follow. Like, to give you an example, I sat through two press conferences, maybe 5 days apart. The first one announcing the sale and saying Claire Williams will continue as the team principal, right? And the second one saying Claire Williams is replaced as team principal, right? So all it took was 5 days for the new owners to make a shift in decision, saying, it's something that we've decided again. So I'm sure there's a lot of water under that bridge already, but the fact is that we would all love to see Williams continue as a heritage team in the sport, and hopefully just get better performances.
Yeah. What about the other customer teams? Alpha Tauri, Alfa Romeo and Haas. Do you think Ferrari slump will continue with these teams as well?
It all again depends on their power unit. So if Ferrari's power unit sort of is competitive enough, I'm sure Haas and Alfa Romeo will be better contenders for point scoring finishes, right? And there were several races last year when Alpha Tauri was the quickest of the Ferrari powered cars, despite being a customer car. So I really hope that there is some movement in those two teams, because those two teams were pretty much the first ones to be eliminated in Q1. They would score points if they really just hit some stroke of luck, or if somebody else hit a stroke of bad luck, right? So having Kimi Raikkonen in a potentially slower car makes no sense for Formula One. So I think I hope that he gets a good racing car as well. And then there's of course Mick Schumacher. We'd hate to see the Schumacher name being eliminated in Q1 90% of the races, just because the package doesn't allow him to progress.
Yeah. Also looking forward to see how Yuki does. He was really quick in Formula 2. Obviously, he didn't win the championship, but it was pretty quick. So excited about him. Though our guy could have been there too, but you always tend to think about that. But hopefully, his time will come sooner than later.
Yeah, sooner than
Yes.
later.
Yes,
Quickly,
sooner, hopefully.
Yeah.
let's just touch upon Aston Martin. Kunal, you can tell us more about this team since you've been associated with them when they were Force India. What do you foresee for this new life of the team?
So I think the rebranding is an excellent exercise, and a great reward for my colleagues at Force India, right? I spent almost 6 years with them. Great memories and great results. And we were always called the best pounds per point world
Yeah,
champions, right? And
yeah,
uh, I think Lawrence Stroll buying the team solves one of the team's biggest problems, which is money and cash flow. And as we know, the good old saying in motorsport, the more the money, the faster you go, right? But it for Force India, it was always about very smart decisions that the team made, with the limited money that they had. So I hope that DNA stays despite the influx of money, because the main pillars of the team still remain as it is. As Otmar, my former boss.
yeah.
Then there is Andy Stevenson. He's been there for almost 20 years now, since the Jordan
Mm.
days. There's Andrew Green, very, very well
Yes.
known technical director, and so on. So, very excited to see what Aston Martin is able to do. And then they've, of course, got Sebastian Vettel. So, great to have, a four times world champion racing for the British Green team.
But is it a step down? I have like a different question. If you take Kimi's example, if you take Alonso's example, and now Vettel, all these former champions, uh, there's too much at risk for them. I mean, their reputation is at stake when they decide to take a step down or come back into the sport, like Alonso has done or Kimi has done. Obviously, Vettel is taking a step down. How do you see that? And is it worth it? Because obviously you won 4 titles. This is for Vettel, and now probably this was one of the last seats remaining, and he did not have any of the options. So, is it worth the gamble?
You know, I honestly thought Sebastian Vettel would walk away, because, again, sitting through lots of his conferences after he was sort of, not renewed by Ferrari, and then he was waiting for a seat elsewhere. And I believe, Aston Martin will give him a good racing car, because they've got a very simple philosophy. We put as much of the Mercedes's last year's parts on our car. So they sort of
Yeah,
run the same car with a lot of upgrades for the second time in running. So they get a lot of understanding, lots of data, right? But technical parts aside, I think Vettel, had he just left from Ferrari, and not sort of stayed back, his legacy would have been of a four times world champion who became a spinning world champion, right? Who let go of races and world championships just because he was unable to keep the car straight, in as simple terms. But
yeah,
Aston Martin sort of allows him to have a more freer atmosphere, less political. I could say that as well. And hopefully that allows him to showcase that he's not forgotten his driving, and there were different factors that sort of impacted his racing at Ferrari. And Bharat, I have a different view, which I hope never comes into light or never comes into reality. Is Lawrence Stroll and Lance Stroll have struggled with Lance's perception as a Formula One driver. He's always been seen as a driver who's been there because of his dad's money, and right now he's racing for his dad's team, right? So, like Otmar said last season, Lance is our driver, and we don't really have an end date to his contract, right? So I really hope that Aston Martin and the Strolls don't use Sebastian Vettel to make Lance Stroll look good. And if they do that, then Vettel is going to be remembered as somebody who got beaten by Lance Stroll. And I think that's really terrible.
Yeah, but that can happen. You
it
don't see
can.
it
Yeah,
happening, but that can happen. So, a good point there.
Yeah, fingers
I
crossed.
personally think that I think they should use Seb's experience to probably somewhat guide Lance, because see, Lance has the talent on his day, he's as good as any, right? But then his biggest problem is inconsistency. I think you can just say that probably he's been on the paddock for quite a long time. So I think inconsistency is something that he needs to work upon. So I think Seb could be a good teacher. So I think
Yeah, yeah. But there'll be intense pressure on him also because he's kicked out two deserving guys in his stay at Racing Point. First, I think it
yeah,
Yeah.
was Ocon, and
yeah,
now Checo. Yeah, Checo
yeah,
was obviously. I mean, I'll be a surprise if anyone would say that Stroll was more deserving than Checo.
Yeah.
We all know
Yeah.
what the general view is. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
And nothing, no doubts about Lance's talent. I used to be a racing car driver, and now in hindsight, I remember racing against a few competitors who would take 5 laps to get up to pace, and sometimes I needed 15 laps. So there's nothing wrong if you take time to sort of develop into your true self, which is what Lance has been doing. But I think the big question people end up asking about Lance, and this is where I'll also bring in Valtteri Bottas. So it's not to say that they are of the same talent caliber, but when you tend to have a bad day, it's about how much your mental strength and your depth in talent helps you not make it a worse or a worst day. And classic example being Lance in the Turkish Grand Prix last year. He put it on pole in really trying conditions, right?
Yeah.
And then in the race there was some issue or the other that sort of knocked him out, and I think he scored ninth place or something,
Yeah. Nice.
whereas Checo, who started second, was still able to I think he got onto the podium despite being
Yeah.
under pressure from the Ferraris and the
Yeah.
likes, right? So it's
I
about
think he came in third.
yes, correct. So it's just I think Lance has got several opportunities. It's the kind of opportunities I wish, and I'm sure a lot of racers would wish they had in their careers. Where you're like, I know I can do this next year and the year after and maybe the year after. So I have several chances to get it right. But that said, Lance will also realize after a point that his reputation will change the day he's able to make the most of his opportunity today rather than banking on what could come tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Perfect, guys. So quickly, your predictions for this year. You see Mercedes champion. What about second and third?
I think I will go with Red Bull being closer to Mercedes, right? I also think Aston Martin will be closer to Red Bull and hopefully Mercedes as well. And I'll give you a very very simple example as to how Aston Martin, in this new design philosophy, will evolve, because I'm sure you guys remember, every time Force India Racing Point ended up at Spa or Monza, they would
Yeah.
be the quickest cars out there because there was something in the DNA of the car and the setup that would just click like this, right? And when they switched to the Mercedes philosophy as they did last year, suddenly at Spa and Monza last year, they were not able to come up with the same performances as their previous design philosophies could, right?
Yeah.
And that was because they are still understanding, or they were still understanding how to extract more out of this pink Mercedes concept, right? They're going to be in the second year of a similar concept. It's going to be a green Mercedes, right? And I only expect them to sort of be able to extract more and more, because they will definitely get wiser with how to deal with this design philosophy.
Yeah.
Third.
I think the midfield battle will be really, really interesting. It'll be really, really intense. So I'll have an eye on that. And I'm not too sure how much of this restricted downforce will make a difference. Maybe more so in the midfield than at the top, or do you also see uh, probably? I mean, is that one of the reasons Red Bull will be closer to the Mercedes than last year with this whole rule change taking place
It
this year?
it could be because we know Adrian Newey's genius is well documented, and it's going to be something we'll remember for the time to come. So the aero changes that are happening are very small, but they sort of impact the balance of the car to a great extent, right? But trust the teams to use all their tools and resources and experience to sort of claw back lost performance through the course of the season. And I think, Bharat, what will also happen is from 1st of January this year, teams are running two programs. One is on the 2021 car, which they of course can't ignore, because how they perform this year will dictate
Yes.
how much money they make for 2022, and then a 2022 car as well, right? So of course, there is a lot of carry forward, that goes on between seasons as well. But I believe that the aero changes will sort of impact form factor a little bit in the first half of the season or first third of the season before teams sort of get into understanding the shift in balance better, because even preseason testing, there are just 3 days this season, and I think that is in itself going to be great, because we've realized time and again that if teams are given lesser track time, suddenly the racing outcome
Yeah.
can be far more entertaining. Of course, it's not a like to like comparison, or it's not a direct proportion, or a direct sorry, loss of word, but it's not a direct link between the two. But the chances, the probability is higher of the racing being better if teams have lesser data and time to play with.
Yeah. Also, if I may add, also looking forward to the sprint races that are in the works this year. I hope they take place, and hopefully we can get a queue for the 2020 season and onwards, because I think definitely there is a need to spice up the qualifying. And there's a definite need for a change in format. Probably that's one way you make the sport competitive, and definitely we all want to see that. It's about a decade now we've seen predictability. It should end. It should end sooner than later.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, while qualifying is still for me more exciting than the race for a lot of times, okay, we
Yeah.
still know we could write down today who's going to be eliminated in Q1 most of the races, and we'd be right. We could write
Yes.
which teams will make it to Q3, and we could be right. Which
Yes.
drivers will be fighting for pole, and we could be right. So yes, spicing it up a little bit makes sense. Although my personal view is that if they just keep qualifying as it is and figure out other ways to impact race entertainment, it is probably going to be more fun, right? So drivers have always been complaining about the Pirelli compounds. They are either too soft or either too hard, so that's always a challenge. And Bharat, I would also probably go down this road of 2-day weekend formats, like they did in Imola last year. Could we have just one free practice session leading us
Yeah.
straight into qualifying? And then the pressure is on teams to get it right that much more. And but I think we will see lots of format changes, not just in 21 but in the coming, or rather in this decade of Formula 1.
Yeah, but I think it also raises the fairness questions, because if you do that in Formula 3 and Formula 2, the sprint races, it's a single make championship. So
Yes.
it's kind of a fair deal. But if you do it in Formula 1, there's vast difference between teams and their performance, it also raises questions on the fairness part. So
True.
let's see how that works out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the core DNA of the sport will have to be preserved, which is that it's a constructors championship, and the fact is there are different brands competing, and any change which borderlines on gimmickness, or making things a little bit of more of a mockery, then it's certainly going to not be as much fun.
Yeah.
Perfect. I think so, guys. Let us just end this episode of the Fresh One Capsule on this note. So there you guys have it, and thank you, Kunal. Thank you, Bharat, for joining us for this episode. Guys,
Yes,
stay
man.
tuned. Stay tuned. We have something very unique coming up. We will have Bharat and Kunal giving us their driver predictions for the 2021 season. So, guys, thank you so much for joining, and see you in the next episode.